Hi, everybody. Welcome to the fourth episode of the Wedding Jigsaw podcast. Now, as you know, the whole idea of the Wedding Jigsaw podcast is to let you get to know the personalities of the wedding suppliers. And today, I am so happy to have a really long-term friend of mine here to speak to you today. The main subject is about having a band at a wedding. And this lady has been fronting some of the greatest bands that have ever been in Northern Ireland over the years. She currently has her own band yet again, which is the Wedding Collective with her and her husband, Davy. So I'm really happy to welcome Elayne Taggart-Mutch. Elayne, you're very welcome to be here.
Hi, long time no see.
Indeed. So, you know me, I love live bands, I love live music. But in your opinion, is it right to have a live band at every wedding, or would you say not every wedding? What do you think?
Hmm. Um, my honest opinion would come down to a couple of factors. It would come down to budget.
Hmm.
I understand how important a wedding day would be for any bride or groom, Donald, and to think that they wouldn't have the budget for a band and feel like they were missing out. I wouldn't be comfortable with that feeling. I would prefer that if a bride and groom tailored their budget to what's really massively important. Now, I believe a live band, of course, is massively important at a wedding. There's that interaction with the audience, and and there's a bit. I think there's more of an atmosphere with a live band. However, in saying that, I do know just through speaking to bride and grooms over the last 5, 6 years, whatever, I do also understand that the market has changed slightly in terms of they want all the latest sounds, and certain brides want all the music they're listening to right now, that it is quite difficult and can be quite difficult for a live band to replicate. And so you have DJs coming through now that are also have that entertainment value. So they're adding on with their Mr. and Mrs. things like that. So yes, I think that's good. I think it's good to have a balance. I mean, my ideal answer would be if you can afford to have both, 100% have both.
Hmm.
But I do understand it comes down to budget. I've spoke to brides who just don't have the budget, and you can hear it in their voice. And I've spoke to some of them face to face, even at wedding fairs, if we can remember what wedding fairs are, um, even face to face, and just to hear that they just cannot afford a band. And so when they say that to me, oh, I'd love to have you, but there's just no money for a band, I'm automatically then saying, don't be worrying about it, get a DJ, you'll have just as much fun, blah, blah, blah. But I do think overall, I think a band and a DJ is a perfect combination, simply because the band can do their set, and anything that they can't accommodate, then the DJ can certainly do for a bride and groom. So if a bride came to me and said, what do you think I should go for? I would always go for both.
Yeah, yeah. Fair enough if the budget's there. And yet, the other thing though, I have noticed, and I know you guys do it as well. Uh, some bands will actually provide it. Well, I don't know if it would call it a DJ set after their set, but certainly, would you call it a DJ set, or would you call it just a set of different records being played, or what? What would you call that?
Um, well, there are some bands that will provide a DJ set afterwards, and they have the facility to do it, and that's great. We we did it at the start, and the reason we actually did it at the start is because we played a few weddings, and then at 10:30, when the buffet was ending, uh, this DJ was opening back doors and coming in, and people were freezing cold. Or the DJ was there before the band and setting up his gear, but there was this massive drop in volume or this massive escalation in volume, and there was a difference with the lights, and it was noticeable. And a couple of times I had complaints, even though the DJ was nothing to do with me. So the complaints said, "Oh, your DJ's too loud," or "He's too low," or the biggest complaint I got, "He didn't speak." Whereas obviously with a live band, they're always talking and having a chat and a bit of banter, announcing the next song, or anyone fancy a bit of 80s. There's always that interaction between the band and your guests at a wedding.
Yeah.
And so one of the complaints would had been that there was a DJ and he didn't speak. So to sort of combat that, we thought, we'll just do it ourselves. And we did it ourselves until, and we still would do it ourselves at times, but we did it until we found some DJs to work with who we know were good, had great caliber of equipment, knew their stuff. Am I allowed to mention who it is we work
Of
with?
course
Am
you
I
are.
allowed to
Yeah.
plug? Yeah.
No,
So Anywhere in the Northwest, it's always Rory Cook. Absolutely fantastic. I genuinely cannot fault them. Consummate professional. The guy's amazing. And he understood my criticisms about turning up halfway through a band set, carrying gear through crowds of people who are trying to dance or are seated, and then they're not talking. And so he was 100%, and his equipment was fantastic, and his interaction with the guests were brilliant. And I said to him, at that one particular occasion, I remember I said, look, listen, the bride is French, and can you put some French songs in? And he took a list from the bride and groom, and I'm sure the list must have been about 4 hours long, but there was no complaints. It was like, absolutely, what do they want? That's what you want in a DJ.
Yes.
Now for Belfast and sort of surrounding areas, we always use the wedding shop. Chris Campbell, who owns the wedding shop, is absolutely, you work with Chris as well.
I do.
And Chris is hugely reliable also. He is, his equipment's good, he's going to be there, early and on time. And it's always you just literally simulate a change. There's no difference, straight from band to DJ. So we use those guys. But so I do think DJs have a part to play. Good DJs have a part to play.
Oh, definitely. There's no question about that. As you say, as long as they're good, there have been some great DJs over the years I've come across. Similarly, there's been some less than great.
Yeah, and for us, it was that until we found a couple of DJs that we knew were really good, it was better off for us to do it ourselves. Yeah. The only thing with that is, where we live, and we're traveling into Belfast, and we're collecting the VAT and the band, and it's 2 different vehicles. And sometimes, if you're out at Harvey's Point, you're 3.5 hours to get there.
Yeah.
And then you're DJing to 2 o'clock in the morning when the band may have finished at 11.
Yes.
And you can't really ask the rest of your band to sit right through to 2 in the morning. No. So it was best for us to get another DJ, and thankfully the guys that we got were just fantastic. Brilliant. And what the nicest thing is, so easy to work with, Donald.
Oh yeah.
And even in terms of money, we've had incidents, which quite sad occasions, where weddings may have had to be brought forward for, maybe someone having a terminal illness and things like that. We've had some sad occasions like that, and it's been a case of, you just knew someone had to bring their wedding forward a year. They don't have the full money. They were expecting to have an extra year to save. And I, on 2 separate occasions, reached out to Rory, reached out to Chris, and they dropped their prices instantly. And that to me is the quality of a good DJ who is willing to work. That says a lot.
Oh yeah, you're right there. You mentioned something there, which I know you've some strong ideas about, and that was timings. Weddings, timings at weddings. I know this can be a sore point.
Okay. Yes. Right. I'm trying to say this really nicely because I don't want to offend absolutely anyone. Not that I know of anyone who does anything bad with times. All I can do is give my personal experience. And I think sometimes somewhere along the line, bands forget, not even forget, but because it's another gig to them, I think that knowing that they sort of forget that this is probably the most important day of a bride and groom's life. They've probably been saving for this for 2-3 years for this one day. But when you're playing 2, 3, and 4 weddings a week, it's easy to slip into it's just another gig. And I have issues with that because it's not just another gig. If you asked me or I asked you to pull 20 grand out of my pocket to pay for a wedding right now, we couldn't do it. We wouldn't have it. Well, especially not in COVID times, but we just wouldn't have it. So these people are saving really, really hard. And I think we need to be very mindful that they're the client and we're a supplier.
Yes.
And if that client asks us to start at 8:30, we should be ready to start at 8:30. So I have points of view in this from a bridal point of view, bride and groom point of view, and also from a band point of view. And all I can do is refer to examples with us. We would tell every bride and groom that we set up, takes us 1 hour to set up after their meal is finished. And I have had on numerous occasions a bride say, well, what are we going to do inside that hour? And I'm having to say, well, and you just have to understand that they don't realize that they're up at so early in the morning, then they're getting married, then they're getting photographs, then they're back to reception, then they're sitting down for a meal. So the first time their guests really get to come and speak and have a photograph and tell them how beautiful they are, and also evening guests arrive, is when the meal finishes. So when the meal finishes is the prime time for a band to get in and get set up. we did have an issue where a bride was really insistent. She wanted us set up before the meal.
Yeah.
And she was absolutely having none of it. She wanted us set up before the meal. And we did set up before the meal, and we did, obviously, because she's the client. And I did advise her at the time, if we have to set up behind your top table, the videographer and the photographs are all going to have leads and wires and a drum kit and guitars, all, and a PA, all in your wedding photographs. And that's what happened. And the videographer and the photographer came to us and said, why did you set up there, guys? And I said, I'm sorry, I work for the bride and this is what she told us to do. So they had a lot of editing to do.
Yeah.
To try and get rid of the wires and the leads. And the bride said herself at the end of the night, it was really stupid because it meant that, even some of the speeches, my dad's speeches, leads and mic stands behind him.
Yeah.
But, so I think sometimes they don't get the grasp, but that's our job. Our job is to educate them on that and help them through it to make it the best day for them. So I will always tell them inside that hour, Donald, the tables are getting cleared down by the staff.
Exactly.
People are mingling, they're away for a smoke, and that's an hour for us to get in and get set up.
Well,
any decent band, Donald, needs an hour to get set up and get a sound check.
Well, that's what I mean. I use that, Elayne, from my point of view when I'm talking about the casino for brides. I say to them, that's the ideal time to move everybody out of the room, and where I'll have the casino tables in the bar or wherever they've been moved to, while the band are moving in and setting up, and the hotel are stripping down the tables and taking the top table away and all that sort of thing, and they're outside. So that's my sales point to them. That hour is dead. I call it the dead zone. Because it really is dead.
Yeah.
Plus the fact that even if you were set up, say for the sake of argument, in some weird situation, I can think of one room where it can be done actually, and that's downstairs in the Great Hall in Galgorm, where the band can be set up at the opposite end of the room from the top table. Yeah. But in a situation like that, straight after the meal, nobody's ready to dance. They're all sitting with a full tummy. The last thing they want to be doing is bouncing about the dance floor. So
absolutely.
Want your band starting straight after the meal. It's the silliest time to start a band. I think it's a waste of a good band. That's just my opinion. Yeah.
Oh no, I understand, and we would always, stop for the buffet. And brides will say, if it happens that our set plays runs into the buffet, and it does very often. I could probably count on one hand, two hands, the amount of weddings that we've turned up to that have ran on time. Oh. And I will say this to a bride, and I understand, 99% of them are getting married for the first time, or 98% of getting married for the first time. So this is their first experience of it. And they're bound to be nervous, and they're saying, right, okay, if you're ready to go for 8:30, I want my first dance at 8:30. And I'm saying, okay, no problem. I'm nervous. I want it out of the way. I go to find them at 8:30, and they look at me like, what? Am I even guess having what are you talking about? So it's just about sort of, and I don't like to say educate because that sounds like they're a bit ignorant. They're not. It's just making them aware that the band is set up, and when you want your first dance, we'll do it. But then I always tell them that we will stop for the buffet because I personally feel people are eating and not dancing. And if you play a half an hour through a buffet, that's a quarter of your money that bride and groom just wasted.
That's right. Because
people were sitting eating. So now I understand also that there are bands with hard and fast contracts, as in we start at this time, we finish at this time. And that's fine if it works for them. For us, it doesn't. I don't believe that we know how fast people can eat at a wedding. We have no idea how fast they can eat. So we don't know if the meals are going to run on or if they're not. It's our job, if we say we're going to be set up for 8 o'clock and we're getting in at 7:30, it's our job to be sitting outside there at 7:30. And if it runs on to 8 o'clock, well, what are we complaining for? We're sitting in the van, we're having a bit of crack, we're getting a catch up. By then, the car, I've arrived with the other girl singer, and we're just catching up on the week and who done what and how things were. So that's our job. We're getting paid for that.
That's right.
And if we don't get in until 8 o'clock, well, then that's fine. We're ready to go for 9. And as long as the bride, as all this is done in advance, there's no hiccups on the day.
Yeah. Yeah. You mentioned another thing there when you talked about, doing maybe 3 or 4 gigs in a week in, normal times, obviously not now. And that brings us on to the thorny subject of the first dance, because you mentioned the first dance.
Yes.
And I have noticed, I've been at weddings with the tables and whatnot when the band has played the song for the first dance. I've been at more often where the first dance has been a recording. And I know there's very good reasons behind that, but possibly other people don't. Could you explain that one for us, please?
Okay, once again, I'm giving from our opinion, Donald. We, on average, and especially during the summer months, would probably play anywhere from 3 to 5 weddings a week. When I speak to a bride about 3 weeks before her big day, I will ask, that's the point that I will ask, your first dance song, and if you're having any other dance songs. And some brides will say, no, just a first dance song. And other brides will say, first dance song, daddy, daughter, bridal party. Now, if we have, say, even 3 weddings in 1 week, and each of those weddings want 3 first dance type songs, that's 9 songs for us to learn. It takes us 2 weeks to learn 1 song. So how could we? It's impossible to learn it. And so we always knew that it was just never going to be a possibility. And I always make the brides aware of that, even prior to them booking. I don't think they should be ambushed by that. Now, there has been some occasions, we actually played a wedding in Stormont itself in the actual Parliament building. And the bride was insistent. She had asked faithfully about 8 months in advance if I would learn a particular song for her. Now, that was no problem. We had 8 months notice, so of course we learned the song for it. That wasn't an issue. But 9 times out of 10, it's just physically impossible to do it. It can't be done. So I do know, and it was reaffirmed to us when we were invited to a wedding of a band, and I genuinely do not know the name of the band. But we went to a wedding of a very close friend of ours. Myself and my husband were part of the bridal party. The bride and groom were into horses, nothing else. No interest in music, no interest in dancing, horses. So they asked for a list of songs that they could have a first dance to. And obviously, she's my friend. I sent her the list. And she said, look, just pick one for me. So I picked Al Green's Let's Stay Together, which is a beautiful song.
Yes.
And the first dance came, and the bride and groom were called to the floor. And, with the 21st century now, so we're all standing with our camera phones, videoing the first dance as we do. And the first dance started. And the groom, Paul, had already been at the bar knocking back whiskey because the guy can't even, can he not only dance, he can't drink either. So he was so nervous about this first dance. 2 of them get on the floor. I still have it on my phone. It's probably about 4 years ago now. I still have it on my phone, actually saved to my laptop. And they started to dance. And the song started. And they danced around the floor. And they were looking at everyone going, that's not our song. That's not our song. That's not our song. The band's version was fine, but they did the Tina Turner version. And it ruined the first dance. Now, we have had pre-COVID, we had lunch, we had dinner, with a couple, and it's been a joke, and we've laughed and joked about it and this sort of thing. But at that particular time, it was completely ruined for them. The first dance was ruined because they wanted Al Green, and the band played. And the only time that they knew what their song was when it hit the chorus. And so being a part of that night, I looked at my husband and went, if ever I need a confirmation that we are not doing first dance songs, that's the confirmation there. And then also just speaking to brides, so many brides are so nervous, Donald, before they get up for a first dance. They're aware everyone's looking at them. And it really eases their confidence so much that when they know that they're getting on the floor, that they know when it starts, they know the middle of it, they know when it's coming towards the end. So they know every bit of that song because it's the exact same song, note for note, that they fell in love to, that they chose, and that they selected together to have their first dance as man and wife to. So that's honestly, I can't be any more honest than that. That's why we don't do first dance songs.
Just want to make one point really, really clear here. The wedding you were talking about there with regards to that particular first dance song, you and Davy were there as guests. It wasn't your band.
We were part of the wedding party.
Right, it was
Davy
another
was
band. It wasn't your band. Right, just in case anybody would be going, that's a bit weird. Yeah, no, you were the wedding party. You were not playing at that wedding, right?
That's why I said at the start.
I know.
But I do not know who the band was. I genuinely don't. I have to ask.
Want to remind everybody
I've never heard of them. So I'd never heard of them. So and they were a very good band.
Yeah, yeah. And so
Yeah.
when it comes to talking to the bride and groom before the wedding, months before or whenever, do they? I mean, do you work with them so that you have a set? Do you go through your set with them? We're going to play this, this, and this, or would you ask them what they'd like you to play, or do you just say, "Look, we'll have a great set. We know it works. We'll do this for you."
That's a question we get asked quite frequently. When a bride books the band,
Mm-hmm.
at that point, after she has signed her booking forms and sent them back, we would have a conversation, just me explaining to her that she has our details. She can contact me 24/7 for anything she needs. And I tell her that I'll be asking about 4 weeks before the wedding for a list of songs to give to the DJ. And so I want her to think between now and the day she gets married, whether that's a year or 2 years, anytime a song comes into her head, like, oh, we first met at a Killers concert, so I need a Killers song, or mom and dad's anniversary song was this. Anything comes into her head that going to make that night more personal, send it to me. Any song, any request, anything, send it. And then I explain about our band, and I tell her we have a set show. A wedding band, in my opinion, has to be generic. Unless you're going to be in a specialty, like maybe a folk band, or you're going to be a wedding country music band, all normal standard wedding bands need to be generic. So we need to cater for granny, and we need to cater for the 14-year-old guest who's only into Fortnite, but if he has to listen to music, this is what he's going to want to listen to. So we have to cater for all that. So I'll explain to bride and groom that we have a set show, and it will consist of a bit of up-to-date music. It will consist of a bit of the 80s. It will consist of a bit of country, but it will be commercial stuff.
Yeah.
It won't be country music that turns off every other person in the room. It'll be country music that granny will go, oh, I love Dolly Parton's 9 to 5. And also the girls, the bridesmaids, be like, oh my God, it's 9 to 5. So it caters to, it's commercial in the way that it caters to everybody in the room. However, we also have pockets of music that we've learned for people who like specific type of music. So if someone is a massive ska fan, we have like an 8-10 minute ska medley that we can do. What we get asked for quite a lot is rock music, and so we have a rock medley that we can do. And then we also have, which we hear quite a lot as well, an old school set. And so you remember me from the days of yore, Donald. We were always a dance band, so we have an old school set. So we always have something that we can put in that, and like a disco set as well. So we have stuff, and like what we call a ladies 80s, it's your Whitney and your Cyndi Lauper and all that sort of stuff. So I would advise the bride and groom of that at the time and say, look, if there's any of the stuff you need, just let us know. So, but the main body of our show wouldn't change, because as I say, it would be impossible. Yeah. So that's why right at the start, I'll ask them, and some brides do it, some brides don't. Normally it's 4 weeks before the wedding, and then they're saying, oh my goodness, can I send a list to the DJ? Absolutely, they can do it. But our set show remains as is, but we do have pockets of songs. So if we know that someone absolutely hates, rock music, well, we just drop that out and continue on with our normal show. But it has to stay very commercial.
Yes, of course. Yeah.
Have to cover all bases.
Oh, yeah. Or I remember many years ago, people going up to DJs and say, would you play such and such? And the DJ's looking at them knowing, that's going to empty the floor, so it's not. And then, so we not play my song. It's years of experience that would have emptied the floor completely. You can't do the oddball. It's going to lose the whole group on the night, lose everybody's interest, But what about set time? Is it a 2-hour set, 2 1-hour sets? What way does it work?
Again, I just refer back to the client. As far as I'm concerned, that person has hired us for 2 hours, so they can have us in any format that they want. Some people will want you to play, could you just please play, 9:30 to 10:30, stop at the buffet, and then do 11 to, or 10:30 to 11:30, like that. And we have had a couple of requests to finish the night, which I thought was going to be weird, but turned out absolutely brilliant.
I would think so. Yeah.
It was fantastic. And at the time I said to the guys, we're finishing the night in this one. They all thought they were getting away at 11 o'clock. But it was, I have to say, to date, it's probably been one of the best weddings that we ever did, because by then everyone was drunk and they were on the tables dancing, and it was
Yeah.
quite a young wedding, so they wanted all the old school stuff, which we were able to do. And it was just a mad one. It was just one of those weddings that lifts you, because and I know a lot of bands want to get in, get their work done, and get out again. But as you say, Donald, at 8:30 or 9 o'clock, people are still sitting with their belly full.
Aye.
And also they haven't had enough drinking and to make them want to get up and have a boogie.
Yeah.
And it's only when the drink kicks in that they want to get up. It's, I see it every year that we played for you, for your club, your 500 club. It was the same thing, you can see them stuffed after their meal, and there's a bit of music on, and then we start, and then you can see as the drinks get in, and then the people want to get up and dance.
Of course they do.
So we work to the client, the client will, they just tell us what we want to do, and we do it. That's it. These people are paying a hell of a lot of money for a band, but wedding bands are not cheap. And if they're paying that amount of money for a band, surely, you have to work to the times that they do. That's what I would expect. And if that's what I would expect for my wedding, then I'm going to be prepared to do it for anyone else's.
Of course.
You mentioned what's lovely, Donald?
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt you.
No, go ahead.
But see, having that rapport with brides, it has, for us, it has, it's led to so many more weddings.
Oh yeah.
And there's families that I would now count as friends.
Yes.
Because, and they've added me on Facebook and stuff, because I played, the initially played the daughter's wedding, and then, I played the cousin's wedding, and then I played, and it's been lovely. It's been really, really lovely. And they come back year after year on our Facebook page, and we're saying congratulations to them, because our Facebook page is really about our clients. It's not about the band.
Yeah.
It's really about the clients, and it's just lovely to put pictures and videos up. But to see that, and I know repeat business isn't the right words, because you wouldn't want someone getting married over and over. But to see the same family booking you time and time again is just, and the same with our corporate clients as well. It's just lovely to have that relationship, and that's why at the time of booking, I have the conversation, and they know they can contact me 24/7, and some of them do. Yeah. A lot of them do. And it's lovely.
As you've said already, it's a really, really big day, and people, I'm all about the idea of trying to take as much stress as possible out of the wedding day for the bride and groom, and if them being able to contact you 24/7 helps do that, and they know that in the back of their mind, that's a good thing. That's a really good thing. It's something, I think it's something everybody should do, but not everybody does,
Yeah, I say to every single bride or groom that I speak to, or parents of the bride or groom, who sometimes whoever's booking the band, I'll say my job is to ensure that the one thing you don't have to worry about your wedding day is your entertainment.
Yes, exactly.
And that's what my aim is. And we have worked in a number of hotels where I understand hotels are running their schedule with food and stuff like that. So they want to basically usher the times along. But, we had an incident where the wedding coordinator said, right, the first dance, it's happening now. And the bride and groom were outside the door waiting to come in, and there was something going on, and I just knew there was something going on. And I went down to the bride, and I said, and obviously if she sees this, she'll know it's her. And I went down and I said, is everything okay? And she said, yeah, they want me to do my first dance, but I really need to pee. And I said, okay. And she says, Elayne, it's like 15 minutes into this dress and 15 minutes out. And I said, this is your day. Go and do what you want. Get your husband to give me a thumbs up when he's ready. But so she done that. He gave the thumbs up. Donald, at the end of their first dance, he lifted her and swung her around the floor. And she was just giving me the eyes like, what would have happened? And I not have went to the loo. So, yeah, I think sometimes it's the same with wedding venues as well. Sometimes they have to understand that it's amazing and they're lucky enough to do these 4 or 5 times a week. But it's still the first time for that bride and groom. Absolutely. So it doesn't matter if it's your 300th wedding. This is their first one.
That's right.
And so they have to be handheld, and they're lovely. As you say, once that rapport's there, I'm still talking to brides from the first couple of weddings we did. The first wedding we did as a wedding band was the 10th of July, 2015 in 10 Square. And I still speak to I seen the groom at about a year and a half ago at a wedding, and he said, do you remember me? And I said his date like that, and he was like, oh my God, Elayne, I can't remember, can't believe you remember me. See see when that guy walks away, he
Oh,
will have told another 5, 6, 7, 8
absolutely.
people, she did our wedding and she remembers me from blah, 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 blah. You know, she remembered the date. You know, it's that
Yeah.
personal touch. It means everything.
Oh, of course it does. It absolutely. Well, listen, you mentioned the fact that you've done. Uh, I belong to Motor Racing Club, and you've done art and entertainment for, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 years. I can't remember how many years you've done it now. And it's great crack. It's great fun, and we all have a ball. One thing I wanted to ask you about it. I mean, there's a particular thing you do with us every time. I call it the what do you call it? The rolling
Yes.
on the riverboat thing, and it's a fun sort of a thing. You get everybody up, and everybody gets is dancing with light sticks and all sorts of weird and wonderful things, and it's just generally good crack, right? But I do know that there are some brides who don't like that sort of stuff. I presume
Absolutely.
you, I presume you do tell them that,
Yes.
do you want us to do this? Do you not want us to do it? That's just part of the package. Yeah, you just tell
Yeah.
them that they can have it or not have it.
Always in advance. That's always a discussion with the bride and groom in advance, because they have to give permission, because they're right at the front.
Yeah.
So they have to give permission. And there have been times when a bride has said, no, I'm not really sure. I don't really know. I think it might be a bit cheesy. And I've said,
Mhm.
okay, well, what we'll do is, if it looks like maybe the evening is a bit quiet, or we need to G people up a bit, give me a thumbs up and I'll do it.
Mhm.
That, I think we've been asked twice not to do it, which was perfectly fine.
Mhm.
And there's been about 2 or 3 times where the bride has said, I'm not sure, I think it's a bit cheesy, and then has came up and said, or sent a bridesmaid up to say, will you do that thing with the glow sticks? And yeah, because it works. The ironic thing is, really ironic is, I will get phone calls, Donald, and people will say, are you that band with the glow sticks? Are you that band that do rolling? And even our other girl singer, Elayne, like, she has got stopped, and it's like, you're that woman out of that band that does the rolling. So people talk about it, which is, and we the amount of bookings we've had on the back of that
Okay, I can believe it.
have been
Yeah.
absolutely outstanding, because it's normally done like almost probably with it when the band's been an hour on stage, so it's normally been
Yes.
done then. So the drink is kicked in a wee bit,
Uh-huh.
and the videographer's usually gone by that stage, and the photographer's usually gone by that stage, and you're catching people at their most honest,
Yes.
when they're letting their hair down and they're having a bit of fun.
Uh-huh.
Now, never, never, ever, ever, ever would we ever do anything that would be embarrassing to
Oh
someone.
Lord, no.
And we have had plenty. I've had plenty of videos and photographs when I've looked back afterwards, and it's like, no, because that person looks really drunk and it's not good. Look, and I went to the bride and said, look, I'm not posting this, and this is why. But we always go through it with them in advance, and before I post anything, I'll send it to the bride.
Mhm.
So, but actually, I haven't had to do that in the last couple of years, because they've said, I'm now getting messages saying, when are you putting our rolling video up? When are you putting? And then the nice thing about it is, it's a bit like learning a song. Maybe I have 3 weddings in a week, and I
Uh-huh.
don't have time to. I can't edit. So really, what you see is what you get. Although when
Yeah.
it's me singing, I turn my voice down because I hate my voice. So, but I will just upload the video. But because there's normally photographs and videos to upload for 3 weddings, it could be maybe 2, 3 weeks down the line before I get that up online.
Yeah.
And then they see it on the Facebook page. And then, as the feedback that I get and consistently get is, oh, Elayne, we're on such a lull after the wedding. It's like, where do we go from here? Everything's all a damper. And it's like, everybody's depressed, because there's nothing to plan now. And then these videos pop up, and it's like, oh my God. And the amount of shares, you always tell by the amount of shares, they just share them and share them and share them.
Yeah.
So people are getting value out of it. They're getting fun out of it. It's costing me a fortune in glow sticks, but I don't care. Because the fun value is totally worth it.
Yeah.
Totally worth it.
Good stuff. Well, listen, you mentioned that the
And
first.
you dance very well.
Oh,
Donald,
thank
you
you very
dance. I'm
much.
very, very proud of you
That's because,
dancing.
as you mentioned
Very
earlier,
proud of
that little amount of alcohol, does help. Yeah.
it.
You
In
mentioned
fact, the last time, you remember, the boys won.
I did, for
For
the
your,
first time. I think the boys won. Folks, this episode with Elayne was so full of good stuff that it went on for over an hour. And I think that an hour is too long for a podcast. So rather than edit it and cut out the good stuff, I decided to split the podcast into 2. So you've now reached the end of episode number 4, and episode 5 will be the second half of this interview with Elayne. So when you get to the end of this one, wait for episode 5 and you'll get the rest of the podcast. Thank you very much.